All right. Welcome everyone to the last interview of Color Hacks. We have a really special guest because in this case, you are looking at a carbon copy, bigger, faster, stronger, more improved version of Dooney. The original, the one and only Timi Dayo-Kayode.
Thanks, Scotty, for that very, very extensive introduction. So I guess I can do a quick intro. Happy to be here, happy to help. I think career-wise, I've always been all about like DEI and tech. So it's a little full circle seeing like my little brother organizing events and having me come as a speaker because those are the folks like I looked up to back when I was in high school, going to hackathons and just like looking up to these kinds of people. Um, yeah, no. So background wise, real quick, born and raised in Nigeria. Moved to the US. Moved to the US 6 years ago now, 6, 7 years ago. Did some high school, did college, went to Tufts, where I studied economics, spent most of my time building companies and investing in companies, and then started building a company called Worksense full time after graduation. Raised a bit of money across a couple angels and grants. And we actually have been running that for the past 6 to 8 months now, and continue to do so. We've got a couple interesting updates in the works, but that's sort of still a little private. But that's sort of the lowdown.
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm up to these days.
Okay. That's some great stuff. I mean, I kind of like already knew all of this stuff prior to this, but what would you like? Like you seem like you've like been through a lot of stuff and like you've done a lot of things. Like, what's your advice for the people watching? Since you already gave an intro review, or like, what advice do you have for the people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big advice, or the big like, the one thing that I think has been relevant across my journey has been just do stuff. Just do it. Like if you want to start a hackathon, just go start a hackathon. Like anyone can do anything, is what I realized. If you want to work somewhere, just find that person's email and email them. Say hi. Here's what I do. Like hire me, please. Here's how I can be helpful. Right. Like
Yeah.
after my sophomore yeah, Tufts. I worked at the VC in Boston, and I never knew that person from Adam. I just saw the company online, and I was like, "This is a cool company." They invest in immigrant founders, and I'm like, "I'm an immigrant, so like I resonate with that because I love VC. I love my background, so I would love to work at a firm where they invest in
Yeah. Yeah.
founders." And so I just looked at this
Yeah.
person's email, sent an email. I was like, "Hey, dude, here's what I do. I work at Contrary. I do ABC. Here's how I can be helpful." And we chatted. We had a bunch of meetings, and I landed the gig. Right. So for me, I just sent the email and stuff happened. I wanted to start a company. I just kind of started to do stuff. Didn't really know what I was doing most of the time. Still probably don't these days. But still just finagling. It's like I want to talk to someone. I'll hit them up. If they don't respond, I'll try to find someone that I know who knows them. And I think it's just hustle. People always see someone in the media who's done crazy stuff and say, wow, that was like a lightning in a bottle, like one night wonder, but that's never really the case. It's always like
Yeah.
a this compounding effect of little stuff that they kept doing over an amount of time. I think that's one of the things I tell Junior, just start early. That's the biggest advantage you can have in anything you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
early. Because for me, as much as I started most of the things that I did in college, oh, to God, I wish I had 4 years previous to Tufts to just like build myself as an individual and build my skill sets, and start to hustle. Because I
Yeah.
see how far just a little bit of hustle is taking me, and I see how much hustle takes people. And so really that's the crux of the advice is just do stuff, hustle. If you want something, just go ask for it.
Yeah.
I read some paper somewhere that like there's some upbringing as a factor to like people who really like go for stuff versus people who don't go for stuff. I think sure that might be the case, but I think if you see that you're someone who doesn't typically go for stuff, just be active, be proactive. I want something, how do I go get it? And I think when you do that, you have a lot of misses. Trust me, I've had so many misses. I've had so many shots that I took that landed absolutely nowhere. I've sunk hours into reaching out to people that ended up nowhere. But the thing is, you also
Mhm.
have those handful that end up hitting and going somewhere that you don't even expect. And so yeah, that's it. I think the advice I would give is just do stuff and hustle because it's rarely ever a one night wonder. It's actually 1,000 nights in the dark and then one day in the sunlight, and that's what people see and they say, wow, this person is amazing, but that person's put in the hours. So I think just put in the hours
Yeah.
and just do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. So yeah, you talked about like the experiences and like you like putting stuff out there, and like like you just said, the 1,000 hours and the one light sunlight and day. So, like, take us through like what are those different things that you've done, and what are those different experiences, what are those different things you put out there? Like, just walk us through like the past like about 6-7 years of your life when you like started getting into the entrepreneurship and the VC world and all stuff like that. Just walk us through all that.
Yeah, no, that's a long journey. I mean, so I think it all really started in high school. Thrown into this space where like I knew no individual whatsoever, new culture. I mean, I'd seen stuff on like TV, but like really, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And coming in at this really interesting time, right? Because you can come in as like junior, for example, came in like what, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, one of those grades. But I can, so you had time to assimilate, but I came in like midway through junior year. And so I'm like, well, holy crap, like this is the point where I should be applying to college. And I just literally got here. What do I do? And no one in my house or my family has any idea what's going on, right? And I basically have to figure all that stuff out myself, because I know, well, if I want to go to a good school, it's all on me, because no one else has any clue what the hell is going on here, right? Like I was the first person that transitioned the family. I mean, Dooney was in the weeds in those days, seeing what I was going through. But like just hustling, I would go on Google, stay up late at night, and just like really figure stuff out. Like, what is a good school? What constitutes a good application? Like, how do I apply to a school like MIT and get in, right? Like, what do I need to do? What are the steps to take? Like, my family is like broke. Like, I don't have the money to like spend. Like, my family, like, we can't afford $250,000 of tuition. Like, that's insane. Like, most families can't. Most people can't afford $250K, and so knowing that I wanted to go to this really good school and they were really expensive, holy crap, they go up every year. But knowing that like there's no way my mom would drop $250K for me to go to school. Like, I can read those books at home, please. Like she wouldn't do that. And so really the question then became, well, there has to be a way, right? I think that is the one thing I've always stuck with is I always feel like there has to be something to be done, right? Regardless of what challenge I'm faced with, I'm like, there has to be something. And so I keep searching until I find that thing that I can do to get what I want. And I think Dooney probably has, there's probably stories I probably wouldn't tell on here that Dooney has insights to, in terms of just like stuff that would be like, well, I don't know what's happening. And I would just like really grind through it and figure something out. But that was really, really the trend through high school, right? I realized I had to take the SATs and ACTs. I made my sister buy me the books. She grumbled the entire time. But I read those books and I stayed up hours, just like really grinding out SAT prep, ACT prep. I took the exam and I think I got the highest score that the high school had ever seen, right? Like off the bat. I think I got a 31, 32 ACT and then like 2000 super score SAT, which like, if we're being honest, in terms of like, high tier academic level, at 2000 of 2400, that's kind of meh. There's kids who like get perfect scores, but that notwithstanding, I think really I just hustled and I got the scores I really needed. I found the resources I needed online. I found some program where it was like, oh, if you have ABC score and ABC GPA, like you can get free counseling for your college applications. I was like, let's go, big bet. Put my information in. I got a free counselor. Like the person I worked with, Bianca Martinez, like we still talk even to today. She was absolutely phenomenal. Like I looked through like our like edit history on Google Docs and just see how helpful she was with like, hey, like I know this is the message you want to pass across, but maybe this isn't the best way to pass these things across, because I was like, what, 18, 17, I was angry at the world, angry at life. Like I was just saying stuff and I just didn't really know how to turn all of the mess that was in me into something that colleges could see as potential. And she helped me do that. Right. And I found that because I just was looking for stuff online. Same thing with Questbridge. Like I was like, well, I want to go to this really good school. I can't afford this. Who gives money to kids who are low income to go to college? There has to be someone who does that. Found a bunch of programs, gone to Questbridge, got a full ride to Tufts, came to Tufts. And I was like, well, now I'm here. Like the journey is only just begun, right? It's like, I get the name brand of Tufts, but like Tufts is what I make out of it. And so I think the one thing my friends would tell you about my time at Tufts is I went through like maybe 6-7 majors, because for me, the question was, what can I do to get the biggest ROI from this experience here? Like, well, what major will I do where I'm a natural enough at it that if I stick at it, I will become like someone who's very knowledgeable in that field. And I'll be honest, till maybe my last semester at Tufts, I didn't really find that thing. But the reality was, by searching, I found something that wasn't necessarily a major. I found entrepreneurship. We had a minor like in the sides. Like I love Tufts entrepreneurship, but I also have misgivings because I was next to Harvard, next to MIT, next to Northeastern, seeing how well their own programs were. But that's by the ways. they have the minor. I took some classes in the minor, and really, I think first semester at Tufts, took an entrepreneurship class. I don't know if you know Mass Challenge, but they're just like accelerator in Boston. I went there, I visited, and I was like, holy crap, this is the most exciting thing I've stumbled across in my entire life, right? So for me, it felt like this hackathon vibe that I'd always loved, but really much more creative, right? Which I really appreciated. And so for me, I was like, how do I get into this space? And so obviously it was interesting coming into entrepreneurship because I decided to solve or stay in a space that was related to a problem I was facing, right? As a Black person in tech, when I first moved from literally Nigeria, right, came to the US and went to a hackathon. I mean, regular kids here in the US who were born and raised don't go to hackathons. I was some rando from some other continent, and I was at this hackathon. I was like the only Black kid, right? And I was like, what in the hell's going on? Like I'd seen movies obviously, but I was like, I grew up in this like predominantly Black society. So being like that only person in these spaces was something new for me. And even when I moved to the US, the spaces I was within, I was among Africans and African Americans. And so that was fairly new for me, that experience of being that only Black in this space. But I mean, I was just so excited to get my hands dirty tech wise that I didn't really care. I experienced it, I saw it, I compartmentalized it, and I moved on. But really, I think for me, I started to think a lot about why aren't there people like that in tech? Like I try to help Dooney see the things that I see. I try to help him see the world the way I see the world. And for me, I was like, well, if I want him to come into the space that I think really is where someone like him should be in, then what kind of experience would he have in that space as a Black person in that space, you know? And just that plus my own personal experiences feeling those things personally, dove straight into that DEI and tech mess, which it was then, it still is, it probably still will be for the next, again, that's another conversation. But dove into that space along the way, got sucked into the world of venture. And again, this is where it comes to, right? Just asking for stuff. I was building this company called TechSpark. I'm not gonna try to tell you what that is, because if I tell you what every idea is, we're gonna be here all day. But basically, I think long story short, it was a boot camp for high school kids of color, and then it becomes something else, and so on. But I reached out to a kid called Maliki who was at Tufts. He was a Contrary venture partner, and Contrary is this student-run fund that invests between $0 and $500,000 into university-founded companies, right? Whether they're current students, recent grads, dropouts, professors, just anyone in that ecosystem, they write these checks into companies that are funded by those people, and they have venture partners across top universities in the country, right? So Stanford, Tufts, UPenn, so on. And Maliki was one of these venture partners. And so I was like, hey, Maliki, like I'm doing this thing. I want to be a founder. I have no clue what I'm doing. Please help. And so we would chat and we just like stayed in touch. And he really just like helped me see things in the way that I should see things, because I think thinking about building a venture backable company isn't as natural as people think. You know, it's like you have to see things through a certain lens and say, oh, this company that I want to start is a venture backable business. And I think that's one of the pitfalls of a lot of entrepreneurs is they say, hey, I have a business. But the question is, don't go meet VCs if it's not venture backable, right? And so for me, I knew I wanted to be this particular kind of founders that I met at Mass Challenge. And so, but I had no idea how to build a venture backable company. And Maliki helped me understand that. And through that relationship with Maliki, when he was going abroad, he was like, well, I need someone else to stand in for Contrary at Tufts. Who do I know that's got hunger, that's got hustle, that like knows people and just like goes out and talks about what he's building? Timi. And he introduced me to the person who runs Contrary. I had a bunch of interviews, joined Contrary. And for me, Contrary is like the rocket fuel to my journey in tech so far, if I can even call it like a rocket ship, if you will, right? Because Contrary just really, I think, refined me as a founder and as an investor, because through Contrary, I'm seeing these like founders from Stanford, Harvard, MIT pitch companies and talk about what they're building. And I'm starting to develop this like mental framework of, oh, this is how you do it, right? Versus like what I've been doing. And so by virtue of being inserted into this sort of, I want to say, closed community of young people who are all building these tech companies, I was exposed to how it really works. And for me, that just, I mean, I think my network exploded. I learned how to be an investor. I learned how to evaluate deals. I learned how to build companies, and everything that I think I know right now, which, I mean, it's not a lot, but still everything I think I know right now in that space, I think it's because I was able to join Contrary and really take advantage of this very high tier network of people. And for that, I think I was very opportune, but it all came down, it was all very serendipitous, right? Like I didn't reach out to Maliki because I wanted to join Contrary. Like I didn't even know what Contrary really was. You know, I just reached out and said, hey, this is somebody that can help me. And through that, I got into this space that I never really thought about or known about. And after Country, I landed a one-way gig. I worked in another firm, and I just really built out my own muscle from a venture background perspective. And so that's sort of, I know the question was sort of walk you through that, the sort of in-depth journey, but that's basically, after Contra, I did a bunch of different stuff. I still stay with Contra as a scout. I run Round Trip right now, which for me, again, it's like I got into venture. I was like, well, I'm Nigerian. I love Nigeria. I think about Nigeria all the time. I listen to African music all the time. Doing those. And I love this place a lot, right? But I also love venture. And then I discovered that the African tech ecosystem is popping. And so for me, this is like two of my favorite things in the world mashed together. And I was like, how do I go participate? And so through a very long, arduous journey over the past year, now I run an accelerator called Round Trip, and we basically take young people across the continent and the diaspora who are either starting companies or want to start a company or just in that idea phase. We take them through a tailored curriculum where we bring in AMA speakers, and these are folks who are successful African investors and founders to come talk about their journeys the same way I'm talking about my experiences right now, right? Come give advice, come help these folks explore their networks and think about how to go from where they are into the next stage of their companies. And so that's essentially what we do at Round Trip. And so I've been working with a few friends on that, two people that I think are really amazing. And besides that, I actually started syndicating deals for African companies. So when a company is trying to raise a round, I'll go in and say, hey, like I know people who have money, give me like 100K allocation a year round, and I'll go take that 100K and go find small checks of 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, and bring it into the larger round as part of a syndicate. And I get a small piece of the pie for doing that. And so for me, I think now, because of everything I've learned from Contra and my venture experience going through undergrad, now I think I'm starting to try to flex my muscle as someone who can stand alone and actually build real things that actually support the ecosystem, as someone who's benefited from the ecosystem. So I'd say that whole high school through Tufts was me trying to learn from the ecosystem and understand the ecosystem. And now the things I do are more about, okay, how do I empower the ecosystem and help the next generation of folks who are coming after me and really do my part to help this place, this community, these ecosystems that help me become what I am. So that's a very long-winded response to that question.
Yeah, that's a lot of information. I hope like through this talk, like you guys are actually able to like kind of see like my motivation through like this color hacks like gig and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a lot of great stuff. So you mentioned about like the different like things you've been trying to do to like DI inclusion, diversity inclusion in tech and all that stuff. Like kind of you said you had like different ideas and stuff like that. Kind of because I know personally as your brother, you told me like some of the companies you started. Like walk us through like for example Worksense and recently started your kinfolk. Like walk us through like talk us.
Oh, we don't talk about kinfolk in public, sir. But yes, that is private information. But like you mean walk you through the journey of what? Of like these ideas and how they transitioned?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a question that would take a lot of time because every transition, there were a number of levers being pulled and a number of, I think, things that led to those final decisions. That if I was going to walk through what 4, 5, 6 pivots, we'd be here all day. But I think if I was going to give a learning from all of those things and building and pivoting, I think people talk about pivoting like people know it's not a bad thing, but there's still this almost like a tiny aroma of like negativity connected to pivoting in aerospace. And I think the reason why I disagree with that, and I think pivoting is the best thing you could do for yourself as someone who wants to build something, is because if you pivot within the same space, you get to really touch so many different aspects of that space and figure out what really needs to exist, because you have this multifaceted knowledge of how different things work across that industry, right? So for me, that thing was DEI in tech, right? I built recruiting platforms. I built boot camps. I built software that tracks like HR, that tracks demographic information. I built HR tech. I did people ops tech, culture tech, right? Engagement tech. And so I dabbled in so many different things that by the time I finally removed myself from this like micro experience I'd been having and looked at everything from a macro level and took a step back after things went down with Worksense and said, okay, what's next? I was just really able to see a much more connected picture than I would have if I hadn't had all these experiences across the industry to understand how each piece interacts with one another, right? And that's, I think, the value of pivoting that people don't talk about, is you just get to taste so many different things. so quickly, because as a founder, you're doing so much. So you're learning so much. And so by learning so much across multiple different ideas in the same space, you're actually taking in so much information that allows you to be, each time you start something new in that space, you're now more and more likely to succeed each time you start something new in that space.
Yeah.
Right. So now it becomes basically almost a numbers game. Right. So I think for me, pivoting for me has been super valuable. I don't think people talk about it enough. And so for me, that's the one thing I take away from that experience, going through all these different ideas across DEI and tech, is just find your thing and just stick with it, because things will compound, right? And when they compound, it's just math at that point, right? Stuff has to happen. You just have to keep at it. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, I think one of the key things you mentioned is you change your major multiple times. I actually did the same thing because coming from small towns, first generation, getting to Duke, it was just like I have no idea what's going on half the time because I never heard of certain things. Some things it was no one had told me. I'm finding out for the first time, and something that always stuck with me when I first started hearing people talk about changing your mind all the time. Then someone said, "Oh, you're just trying to pivot," and I realized, wait, it's like basketball. You're not always going a straight line to the goal. Sometimes you have to go, you go left or right, crossover, pivot. Sometimes you got to spin. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you think that one motion pivoting is worth this, but what happens is you got to look at the big picture. It's you had to go in this way to get a certain angle on the defender, then pivot to get a better angle, and then go down the lane for a shot or something like that. And I think the issue is a lot of times we tend to view it as just the pivot itself rather than it's connecting everything together.
Yeah.
Because we could say, oh, what's the point of an elbow, right?
Right.
Not much. The elbow, except I kind of need my elbow to do all these things, I can't shoot if I don't have an elbow, right? So I think it's like that, we still kind of think, oh, pivot. There's like you said, an aroma of negativity. But if we're able to view it as, look, sometimes you pivot to get a better angle, then we start to view it as, okay, it's a tool. Is it good to do it now or not? Because if you pivot at the wrong time, you're going to run into the other guy, get a foul.
Yep. And that, I think that's actually an important point, is as much as pivoting is great, the timing and the reason you pivot as well is also super important. It's like you make sure you make the pivot for the right reasons, not just for the sake of pivoting. I think that's a really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Did you have more questions, Timi?
Yeah. I feel like Darren, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them as well.
All right, so I would just like to ask Timi, like what motivated you to start and like keep going? Like, what's your main mission and everything?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's because it's a question I still don't really know answer to. But I think for me, I think what drives me is the fact that I am very opinionated. I think that's what it is. I have very strong opinions on how I think things should work, and when they do, I do everything I can to make it so that that's the way it works, right? And I think there's also a bit of like, I'm opinionated, but I'm also very much like, I think if you went to the right person, you could get told that I happen to be a sort of a messiah complex to an extent, because like when I see something wrong, I just want to fix it. And I think that's where that and the fact that I'm fairly opinionated comes in, is because I came into this space and I was like, this doesn't work. I don't like the way this works, and I want to do something about it. And I just kept going. And honestly, I think the reality that most people won't tell you is that most days it's never a great day all day, right? One thing I told me when I was home, Junior and I used to go on runs, and one thing I told him is, when we go on runs and it's a bad run, it doesn't matter if it's a bad run. It matters that you got dressed, you got ready, and you went out and you started, right? It doesn't matter if halfway in you're like, my ankle's hurt, I'm going back home. All that matters is that you keep doing it, right? And I think if that's the lesson that I've applied across my life, is even with Worksense, there'd be semesters where I'm just like, okay, I just cannot handle doing any company stuff, and I would only maybe think about the company like once a week, once every 2 weeks. But it didn't matter, because I just had to, as long as I continued doing it, I knew that it would be fine, because you just have to keep going. I think that's the message. But then I guess the question of like, how do you keep going is then what you factor in, because that's the question you asked really anyways. I don't know. I think it's just, I think innately I've understood. I don't know if I've really known it. I think now I know it more. But I think innately I've understood the value of the compounding effect. And I think that's what I've just optimized my life for so far, is that whenever I do things, I don't really care so much about how well I do it when I do it. I care that I did it anyways. And so that way, even if today, for example, I wake up at 3 p.m. and I barely do any work, I send 2 emails. It's Saturday. Thank you very much. Like I give myself a break because I know I just every day I get up and I still do it anyways. And I think that's why it's so a lot of people find it, I think, hard to stay motivated for something for long, is that they assume that they have to be high performing 100% of the times. But for me, I really don't. Like, I don't. Oh my God, Dooney knows. Oh Lord. Like, I don't. Like, I give myself the biggest breaks ever. Like, when I'm just not feeling like it, I just don't do anything.
Mhm.
And what that means is that I'm actually optimizing for that 20, 30, 35% of the time when I'm like really flying, right? And what I do is I make sure that when I'm not flying, I give it's okay. Like, I don't need to be at 100 every day. And so I think the more you give yourself that break, that like leeway, and say, hey, it's fine. Like, I will get up tomorrow and I will do it anyways, even though I'm not high performing, I'm still continuing on this path because it compounds anyways. I think then it's so much more easier to stay the course, because it's just a much easier journey for yourself, I think, emotionally, mentally, and physically, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that, because like, especially with like this color hack stuff, like some days I'll be like, it's just a lot helpful when you know that, like, even if you're not like, just at least if you don't feel like doing something, like if you're just try to do like the little you can, like even if you're not able to like do it, like you shouldn't always scale your abilities based on what you did before. Like it's like you never know. Like for example, like yesterday I was hyper focused. I was doing a lot of stuff that I could at the same time, like all at the same time. But like some other days I won't be able to do anything. I'll just literally be distracted on my phone 24/7, like barely type a paragraph per essay. It's just always gauge yourself, and also like most important, like do not compare yourself to other people, because like you don't know the backstory behind what that person is able to do, and like the backstory behind that ability and stuff like that. But yeah, some really great stuff. Timmy, you talked about like yeah. You said good question, Darren. I'm not sure if you heard that.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Sorry. Thank you though.
You're good.
Yeah. So Timmy, yeah, you talked about like your growth, because like you've obviously had a big growth coming in from Nigeria as like a 17, 18-year-old, not knowing anything about how the world works over here, to like someone who's actually trying to drive a mission, who's leading the mission to like, DI and tech and all that stuff. Like, so how would you say you want that growth to impact others who are trying to like work in this space and like trying to improve the Black community, as you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is just find your thing, you know. I think we're all called to different things. And like you said, one thing you said was we all have different journeys. Don't compare yourself to people. And so the one thing I think for anyone who's thinking about this is really find what your thing is. Like find how you want to have impact. And don't worry if your impact isn't as much as someone else's, or if someone else's impact is more than you. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're having that impact that you want to have. So I think my advice to anyone is just find that impact that you want to have. And that in itself, obviously, is a journey and a half to find that impact. But find that impact, and don't compare yourself to anyone. We're all on different journeys. We're all called to different things. We all have different lives. And so just find that thing, find the mission that you believe you were called to, and just follow that mission, regardless of how little or how big or how mediocre it is, right? Just figure it out and follow it. Because I think that's, and I think to Darren's question, I think that's probably the answer to why I do this every day and how I'm motivated. Is I do truly believe that everything I do, I mean, I'm doing those. I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious. But if I were, I would believe that everything I do right now was written in a book somewhere, and I meant to do all of this, right? Because I do truly believe that it is my mission. It is the impact that I want to leave. And for that reason, I am able to just keep doing it, because I just have so much belief and faith in the fact that this is what I am meant to do. Right. And so that's what you need to find, is that thing that you believe you were meant to do, that impact you're meant to have on the world, or in whatever space. Because once you figure that out, you just become so much more mission driven and so much more able to direct your growth and trajectory. And you're also just so much less distracted by other people, because now hey, it doesn't matter. This is what I'm doing. This is what I was called to.
Exactly.
And nothing else around you distracts you, and you're so much more focused. And so I think that's thing, is just find that thing, find that way you want to have impact.
Yeah, I feel like that quote you said right there, just find what you want, and like if you're able to find what you want, you won't be able to distract about other people. I feel like that's like really helped me a lot, because like, luckily enough, I have a brother who's like, who's obviously, like, I call him in all of my interviews the informational sponge, but it's just really great because like if you're able to like just be tunnel vision on what you want. Like no matter what anybody hits at you, like no matter what like anybody says about you, like you will automatically just take it without a grain of salt, without even with a grain of salt, without even like taking into account. Like just if you're able to just keep going and just like and for example, like kids are exactly my age and like in the community where like it's just so judgmental. Like any little thing you can be bashed, you can be canceled for it. Just like it's really helpful like having that mindset because then you're just a lot more driven, a lot more focused towards like what you want to do. And obviously, Timmy, like you didn't obviously just randomly end up like this. There are like obviously some impacts in your life, some people who helped you and all that stuff. Who would you like to thank? Who are those people you'd like to thank who like kind of formed you or like shaped you into what you are right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think my family, for good or bad, because I will say that my experience growing up had a lot of impact in what I turned out to be, and what I'm
Yeah.
still turning out to be, I guess. And so for that, I'm grateful to my dad, my mom, my brothers, my sister, for good or bad. Again, right? I think I'm grateful to
Yeah.
everyone because I think and I don't know if if the same is true for everyone, but for me, I think my family takes up a great piece of my life and has so far. That because of that, who I have become has been directly impacted by that, by my familial experiences and my experiences growing up. And so I think that's the probably number one is just my family is who I'd like to thank again for good or bad. I would like to say or add on to that. I guess
Mhm.
secondly, everyone who's just taking a chance on me, like when we raised angel money with Worksense, right? Like it was super fucking random, excuse my language. Like it was some dude who I didn't know from Adam who had worked at who had built a data analyst company and sold it to Microsoft. And I was like, I'm building a data analyst company. I would love someone like that as an advisor. And I DM'd him on LinkedIn. A couple weeks later, he replied. We got on a conversation, and my first like angel check, I think 5-figure, he made the direct introduction, right? Like, and this was something. If I hadn't met him on LinkedIn, that money would have never. There was no way I would get. There's no way I get that check. No way at all, right? And that was just so random. And he just was like, "Oh, this is some random dude I don't know. I guess it talks. I guess I'll take a conversation." And he just took me under his wing. I was like, "Let's go, buddy. We got this," And like he opened up his Rolodex for me. And so people like that, everyone who's taking a chance, I think the folks at Contrary, because I tell people now that like if I tried to get into Contrary, if Contrary was what it is now when I was trying to get in, I probably wouldn't get in. And I say that because I was very raw and just like unpolished, when I got into Contrary. But Contrary saw that as like potential. And they really took a chance on me and gave me this opportunity to grow and I think just polish and improve myself and I think start to grow into what the potential they saw in me when they let me in. And so things like that, just everyone who's taking a chance. I mean, there's definitely so many people that I'm not naming that have. There's too many to name. But just everyone who's helped me, who's said, "Hey, this is some random kid who's doing this thing," and I reached out and they were like, "Oh, word,
Mhm.
let's go." Just I think that's probably the people I'm thankful to is my family and those who took a chance on me so far. And I guess maybe lastly, my friends, like
I
eh,
guess.
like, eh.
Wow.
I'm kidding in a sense, but like I said that to me, like like I'm not the most like at least over the past couple of years I haven't been the most like, oh, let's go out, let's go do all the stuff, because I've just been doing a lot of stuff and been super busy. But whenever I need an outlet for like people to talk to, people who understand me, people I can get along with very well, they've been there. So I guess they can take a shout out or two. But that's basically those are the folks I think.
Yeah. I'm actually curious. You said that like when you first applied to Contrary, you were like this, you were raw and like unpolished. Like, give us a little like insight on like what you were like, because I feel like there might be some people who are watching who are like just like your raw and unpolished self. But like, kind of give them an insight of, like who you were and like how you like transferred from like that raw and unpolished person to who you are right now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. Is I'm a chameleon. I feel like I just blend into social spaces. Like if I've never been somewhere before and I get dropped in, I'll watch for 5 minutes and I'll become one of those people in that second, and I'll become like the social animal in that space. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's been helpful for me a lot as like a character to have. And again, that's why I say my experiences growing up were very helpful, because like I moved around fairly frequently as a kid, and so when I go to a new school, I mean, Julian knows, like we were like mini celebrities at these schools to an extent, you
Yeah,
know. Like,
obviously.
celebrities. Like, I'm not trying to like be like, and that was just because we're so social, you know, people just knew who we were.
Yeah,
But that
yeah,
was something we had to keep doing every time we moved to a new school. And so that also, I think that we and I got to work it so early that was super helpful. When I got into contrary, just like, okay, showing up, watching how people talk, watching how they interact, watching what the dress code is like, even though there's really no dress code, you know, the Patagonia vest and all that nonsense. But just really watching and figuring out how it works and like seeing how they talk and act and support one another,
yeah,
and seeing how it is to interact in this community. And I think just copying that, because really I think here's the thing I'll leave with, actually: fake it till you make it. Like, literally no one has any idea what they're doing. There's some man
yeah.
somewhere who started it, and everyone's been copying that person for the longest. We're all
Literally.
just copying ourselves. And that's the truth, is no one has any idea what they're doing. And that's what I told you, when I think that's one of the things with imposter syndrome is, people who experience imposter syndrome are people who are coming from the outside in. And what that means is they don't know, because they're not in, they don't realize that everyone who's in knows that we're all sort of just figuring shit out. And so they think that
Yeah,
we don't know what we're doing. And so when they come in, they have imposter syndrome because they think we don't know what they're doing, but they don't know what they're doing. But the reality is we all don't know what we're doing, you know? And so that's the thing, is just like, fake it till you make it. Just copy everyone. If someone does something and it works, do that same thing too. Wonderful. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. People imagine that you have to like come up with something like unique and be this person who's your own, but that's BS. Like, just do what
yeah,
works for people and it'll work for you. You know, like, I think
yeah,
one of my favorite quotes, I forget how it goes, but it's like, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Copy what someone else has done and just add your own spin and flavor to it. You know, just like
yeah,
add a little something that makes it yours, you know, a little thing that makes it different, and move on with life. And it works. Like, I have no issues with copying and pasting. I think my friends and the people who I work with specifically know that when we have a question like, oh, well, how did those guys do it? And I'll be like, oh, by the way, I read some article and they had that problem and here's what they did. Send a link. Let's basically do the exact same thing, put our own spin on it. Right. So
yeah,
I think that's the thing, and that's what helped me when I got into contrary was I just like saw, and I don't know why that was the case, but I didn't really see it as like, oh, I don't fit in, so I'll never fit in. I saw it as like, oh, I don't really fit in, so how do I fit in? And I just moved on from there.
hmm
And that was it for me. And I think when I think about maybe some distinct things that were different, I mean, Dooney knows I grill him on his email like etiquette, right? And that's a thing I
yeah,
learned after being in the space. Like, I look at emails from my old email account, I'm like, oh God, like someone responded to this. Like, what is this mess? You know? And that's just things I learned from watching ourselves interact with one another in this space and just really understanding how to be a professional and exist in this space. And so that's what I would say, is just find the people that you want to be and get as close to them as possible and just copy what they do. Get as close to them as possible and copy what they do. That's it. That's literally
yeah,
it. That's what everyone else is doing. So I think
yeah,
that's what it is. And that's how you go from unpolished to refined. And that's what I did. And I think that's what works. And more people should be open to just copy.
yeah. That's a big thing. I feel like with like a bunch of people who are watching, their coders as well. Like with the imposter syndrome, we talked about like you basically copying. Like with coding and like working at Google, like I promise you, these dudes before they went into Google, they knew nothing about the languages and everything that they're
Before,
doing at Google.
bro,
Even
even now, bro, one of my best friends, Favor, works at Google. Like, that dude copies and pastes code from Google all the time. Like, that's what we all do. No one knows what they're doing. It's all, how do you do this? And we copy the code and we paste it. And that's what people get paid six figures to do. You know, like,
Yep.
just figure out how it works and fake your way through it. And like, eventually someone will hand you an opportunity and you be ready because you were hustling at that point, and just run with it, you know? And then
Yep.
at some point you look back and be like, oh, well, shit, I'm that person I've been pretending to be for the longest. I eventually become that person, you know, because that's
Yeah.
how it works.
Don't forget, Stack Overflow is always your best friend.
There you go.
Yeah, and what I told Dooney and Darren, what I tell a lot of people, imitate until you can innovate. You know, if you don't know what to do, just copy paste, like you said, imitate, and then at some point you'll be like, wait, I think I know this good enough to start doing my own thing. Yeah, now you innovate, and I'm pretty sure a lot of VCs, investors, you know, they might look at someone and say, I know that person's clueless, but I know that they do a good job of copying what's good
Yeah. Yeah.
and then learning that and then innovating what's even better.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. You're in middle school, high school. We're all just looking at each other. Some of it's peer pressure. Some of it's just, what are they doing that works? Oh, okay. We
Yeah.
copy that until we start saying, I got my own style. I'm going to dress in these colors. I'm going to wear this or that. You know, what school do I go to? And, you know, Timmy, like you said, find the people you want to be like and go there, go be near them. And for me, that was one big reason why I went to Duke. And even after that, when I moved to a place or left a place, there was a lot of, oh man, do I really want to stay here and turn into that?
Yeah.
Or, hey, I want to become that. So, really appreciate you coming on and talking to all the participants, letting them know, we're all starting off from a point of what's going on. And now we're looking back saying, oh yeah, that was what's going on.
Yep.
And for anyone watching, yeah, we seem like these, it's like they're on YouTube. Well, honestly, if you want to be on YouTube, just put yourself on YouTube.
You just
And
make
at some point you'll have other people putting you on YouTube.
Yeah. It's an interesting point you make there because I was reading something on Twitter, and it was someone talking about like the average number of videos that each YouTuber that got to some level had actually posted before they took off. And again, it's compounding. There's no one that took off before like maybe 100,000, 90,000 videos, right? So you don't just wake up and be like, oh, I'll post a video and it'll become a cultural hit. It's you grind and it's painful for months and months and weeks. And then at some random points, and it's all serendipitous, there's no rhythm or pattern to it. You can't game it. All you can do is try to play the game as many times as you can so that you can actually roll the hands that you need, right? Because you can never really guarantee when you get the hands. But if you don't roll the dice, you never really have that option. And so you just keep grinding and keep rolling because at some point, I don't know, some random shit will happen and you roll and be like, oh, wait, these are the numbers I needed. And then you're in, right? But if you don't keep rolling, it won't happen. So that I agree with that point, Scotty.
Yeah. So, we definitely want to encourage anyone who's watching. You heard the story. It's a lot of information. Take your time to digest this. But in the end, take what you can and apply it to your own life. And anything else you need, go find someone else who has it. Ask them for it. If they say no, go ask someone else. Just keep going until you get what you need. Find ways to copy paste it, imitate until you can innovate. And then you're going to start seeing, wait, those people I used to watch, now I'm with them. I'm talking to them, I'm messing with them. I'm up there. And yeah, some people, you might be thinking, oh, I don't have a brother like Dooney does called Timi. Well, that's okay. Maybe you're called in your life to be the person you wish you had.
I didn't have a brother. That's what I am. I am who I wish I had when I was his age. And so that's what you got to be is if great point. Again, you keep dropping these gems. It's like if the person you want isn't around, be that person. And then you end up just like being where you want to be. So I think obviously a lot of people have different resources and different positions in life, but I think you just hustle because history rewards hustlers. And I think I tell a lot of people that I don't have a lot of talent or like unique skill sets. Like I can't like, drop a bang on a piano or like belt tunes on a violin or like sing or draw or really do anything that's like, a talent, but I can hustle. I grind. When it's hard, I'll just keep hustling. And I think as long as you hustle, like things will work out regardless of whatever industry you're in or whatever position you're in is, life has ups and downs and it'll be hard, but just keep hustling. And I think, at least in my opinion, most of the times it ends up working out as long as you keep going,
Yeah. Wise words.
From a very wise man.
I don't know if I'll take it. This is all a bunch of information that I'm copying and pasting here, guys.
Hey man, it worked. So anyone who's watching, definitely take this, do what you can with it. And Timi, thank you for joining us. It's been great having you here. Darren, Dooney, I'm sure you guys just learned a whole lot during this. I did definitely. Dooney, I know you definitely did.
A whole bunch of copy and paste, to be honest. A whole bunch of stuff I already heard.
Yeah. So yeah, anyone, if you're interested in trying to reach out, learn more, definitely check the video description. We'll add some contact information. But we definitely hope that this helps you a lot in your future, in your present as you grow into your future. Best of luck with everything.